All right, welcome to the Drawing Room podcast with Rob Howard and Kip Carbone. This is the first edition of our new kind of expanded format. So we are no longer just talking about games, although that is our home base. We're talking about other things. And I'm just going to be honest because I love being honest. We've had a lot of technical difficulties, mainly because I bought some new gear and it just spectacularly failed on me unexpectedly. And so I had to revert back to my old gear to do this podcast, and so here we are, just sort of as a fallback. So I want to cut just right to the chase. This episode is the first one we've done that's not about video games. We're doing it about, you could either call it low carb dieting, you can call it Atkins, you can call it keto, you may even call it paleo, but in some ways you are banishing, okay, sugar, bread, rice, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that is what we're talking about, because a couple of years ago Kip and I both went on this journey together and have had really good results, but in some really cool kind of different ways. Like, it's not just all about like getting thin. There's also been, I think, really good results in other areas, and it's early January, and we're actually both really kind of passionate about this. Of course, this isn't real medical advice. Go to your doctor for that. All this is just our personal testimonies, all that. So Kip,
Don't listen to any of our advice. Yes, no medical stuff at all. So
right, yes. I apologize for making you do this again, because in the previous version, when I was struggling with my equipment, I had you
No
do
worries.
this. So we wanted to start just by our stories, kind of what led us to eat this way, this kind of weird way where we're like telling people, nope, we don't want the awesome KFC biscuits that come with the chicken. No, we don't
But they're
want.
so good.
We don't
Oh, they're
want.
so good.
When I go to Cheddar's, I do not want the croissants that they give you for free. What led you, Kip, to eat in this strange manner?
Well, I was pretty overweight most of my life, and then really for like my 21st birthday, I got super drunk. I tried to do like the 21 shots for the 21st birthday type thing, and yeah, like my friends took photos of me, and I just kind of saw myself, and I was like absolutely disgusted by it. And I decided to start to live a healthier lifestyle. And I kind of did, I guess, low carb then. That was low fat and low carb, higher protein. But that was pretty rough, and I kind of plateaued out for a long period of time. And then I kind of knew, I guess keto had been getting popular, and then it was about a year probably after I met you, and then we started to talk about it, and you turned me on to this book by Jason Fung, the Resetting the Obesity Code. I forgot the name of the exact book.
Yeah,
but,
the obesity code, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, the Obesity Code. And then I read that cover to cover, like overnight, and then really started to, like, wow, this is great. This seems like, a good fit for me because it's all the foods I like eating anyway. And I just started doing it, and then experimenting, and then kind of refining it, and then taking it from there. I started another kind of low carb type diet plan that really I got some awesome results in, and I kind of modified that as well myself, experimenting around. But it's just interesting for me to I enjoy experimenting and tweaking and quote unquote biohacking stuff. So that's how I got into it.
And so for me,
Yeah. What's your experience?
I mean, sort of similar to yours in a lot of ways, I think, because, basically when you mentioned this thing of like, well, I saw some pictures of myself and it horrified me. Everyone kind of has that because, look, we all do this. We all do this where we kind of know how to look. We look in the mirror in like the right way, right? The maximum, this is my best side, right? We all do that. So I'm no different. The first time I lost a bunch of weight, and it was not on low carb. I was like 17, and like I remember because it was like the Super Bowl, but I had to go into the garage to do something, and there's some mirror in the garage. It was that kind of a funny angle, so it kind of caught me in a spot that I wasn't used to looking at myself in, just from the angle that mirror was in, and I was just like, oh my gosh, right? And so I went and I did what you did back then. I went to my dad's office, which had a computer connected to the internet, which again, remember the internet was not that old at this point, right? Uh, and I went to MayoClinic.com and looked at their advice, and which was just, the usual low-fat advice. And it did work.
Yeah.
And I've often thought, and we can get into later why I thought it worked, but it worked fairly well. Spoiler warning, I was 17. And the margin for error is much greater when you're younger with this stuff. It just is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I certainly did things that were healthful. I mean, I dropped most fast food, pretty much all fast food, really. I did a lot of, in this quest to be low fat, I did a lot of things that you end up doing when you eat low carb too, just by virtue of trying to avoid fat, even though, as it turns out, I don't think that's actually necessary. Really, once you realize kind of what the true culprit is, in my opinion, when it comes to like what wrecks me personally. But I lost a bunch of weight, kind of gained it back over time in my 20s, kind of slowly. Probably the big gainer, though, was when I took my first desk job, which was working for my father's before I was even in the video game industry, is right after I got married. And that's when the weight really started to come back on. And then I went to grad school to go into video game development. Then another kind of, 10 pounds, 15 pounds just went on because you live so unhealthy. But I thought that's okay. When I get in the game industry, I'll really work on solving that. Now, here's the thing, and this is one thing I want to encourage everyone listening, right? You can learn something, but yet it takes many years to put it into practice properly. I mean, I remember in 2009 finding Tom Knotton's Fathead movie and just being like, yes, this makes sense. This is absolutely the thing that should work, right? Well, okay, but like you have to do this stuff. And I remember just kind of making halting attempts over time, and I couldn't get over the hump of ditching carbs. I just couldn't get over the hump of doing it. I liked them too much. I would try everything that the low carb kind of diet sphere would suggest that wasn't actually ditching carbs. I would try intermittent fasting, which is Jason Fung's big thing. That's probably why I recommended his book, right? And I would try all these things, and they would work a little, but never that great. And then when we started talking about it, this would have been in 2018, is when we really started talking about it. You started doing it, and actually I got to give Nikita credit, because in our kind of rejected podcast we recorded when my equipment wasn't working, she popped in and said, she helped you find this. There's a particular plan that helped you. Do you remember the name of that?
Yeah, it was Code Red. And so we had we had a friend that she was on like the success stories of like, oh, look at this person, their success, and they have like the before and after picture, and it looked fake almost. I was like, no way, that but
whoa,
we saw her on Facebook and stuff, and like we knew her personally, but like it was just like, that's got to be BS or whatever. And then that's why I decided to give it a try. And I had done low carb, I had done intermittent fasting, I had done what I had thought the whole 9 yards at that point, and then there was a lot of stuff I was missing, and we could get into that, which I guess it's not unique to this plan, but it is very critical to any sort of weight loss stuff. But anyway, I had done that, and then I got really good results, and then I even modified that myself to suit my body, which there is a little bit of that involved, I think, with anything. Like you have to be very honest with your body and know what you're doing to get the ideal results and things that work for your body. And that's very unique to everybody. And I think a lot of people think that it's just like a calories in, calories out type thing. There's an acronym or one of those things. It's like
CICO.
It fits in your macros. Yeah, is that what it is?
Well, for calories in, calories out, it's CICO is what you always hear for that.
CICO, yeah, like that doesn't really work. I think but we could get into that in more depth.
Right. We're discussing the mechanics. Yeah, and for me, what ended up happening in 2018 is, we both kind of started intermittent fasting, and at the beginning of the year, I made an attempt to low carb, but I did what I think a lot of people do, and which is what I like to call internet low carb, which is basically you've learned what the diet is through internet memes and Pinterest images and things like that. And yes, there's a lot of aspects of it that are pretty obvious. Like, okay, you don't eat bread, you don't eat rice, you don't eat sugar, right? But there is more to it than this, and I wasn't really understanding what those things are, and so I kind of failed at it at first. I didn't lose that much weight. It wasn't making me feel that much better, honestly. And then I kind of gave it up for a bit and kind of spun around doing some different things. I tried this diet from someone I really enjoy reading called The Perfect Health Diet by Paul Jaminet or Jaminet. I'm not sure how you say his name. That's a really good diet if you're like trying to maintain weight and like you want to like be healthy and all that, because it's like whole foods and everything, but it's not, you have potatoes and rice in it, whatever. But the one thing that made me give that up is I remember he even writes that like, hey, like if you want to use this for weight loss, well, you should do this, this, and this. When you do those things, well, it just becomes a low carb diet again. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And I'll tell you, for me, in the summer of 2018, this is really when I'm like, okay, I just have to do this come heck or high water, right? Like I started running, I started jogging, and I still jog now, and it's been an excellent boon for my health. But in the summer of 2018, I was jogging and I was doing these 5Ks very slow, but I was doing them and getting better, and I was like, kind of making sure to suppress my calories. I mean, I've actually tracked my calorie intake and still do on like the Lose It app everyone uses. I still do, because I just do it. I'm just so used to doing it. And I just remember like I had this really good month in like July of 2018 where I was just like doing all these 5Ks, whatever, and my weight went up like 1.5 pounds. And I'm just like, what? How is this even scientifically possible? And then at the same time, we had a coworker that went on paternity leave. Okay, and that's when most dudes get super fat, right? You know this. You have a baby, you're eating garbage, you're not sleeping, you're going to get super fat. Well, this guy came back from paternity leave thinner. And I'm like, what did you do? He's like, well, I ate low carb. And I'm like, okay, I did something wrong back in January 2018. I need to analyze and be honest with myself. And here's what I discovered. For me, it wasn't code red, and we'll kind of talk about, we have different like objectives and of course totally different body types and all that. For me, I realized, if you're going to do low carb, you might want to actually read even just a little bit of Bob Atkins' original book, Dr. Robert Atkins.
I'm curious about that to hear your take on, because you're really into that old school Atkins, and there's a lot. Right. I mean, a lot of people are just regurgitating that stuff, and they're looking at it like, here's a new revelation, and then it was written in the 70s or something.
Right, and here's the thing, like
even Atkins evolved too, right?
Like Atkins now doesn't even resemble classic Atkins, right? Because he's been dead for a while. The corporation persists, and they have a diet and all that.
Well, it killed him, right, Rob? It was all that fat.
Oh, yes. That's let's just hit that up right now as we're kind of talking about this. There's a lot of interesting mythology.
What killed Atkins? The sidewalk.
Right. Yes. There's a mythology, and I remember even at work when we were working together, I'm bringing this up, and then someone saying, "Well, didn't he die, from a heart attack from having clogged arteries?" And what's hilarious is that he actually died because he slipped and fell on an icy sidewalk and smacked his head on the sidewalk, and he was old, and that's why he died. And then there's all kinds of drama about how fat he was on his death certificate, and that's ridiculous. And no, but here's the thing. He died because he hit his head, not because like his heart stopped beating because it was clogged. I mean, that's just, an interesting urban myth that's happened with this. Yeah. But anyway, like, I read, and here's what I would recommend anyone do. Just search Atkins PDF, okay? Because you want to find one of the older copies of his books floating around. And when you do, you'll discover some interesting things about it, like which we'll get into maybe in a minute, since we're just talking about our personal testimony of what's happened. So once I put that together, it started working. I remember very distinctly in like August of 2018 being like, oh my gosh, like for the first time, how like when I was young and tried to lose weight, you'd get that like really satisfying 5 to 10 pounds that just fly off like right away, and you're like, it's on, baby, it's on, right? As I've gotten older, that would never happen. I would try real hard, I would do all this stuff, and the weight might go down like a pound or something, or sometimes even not at all. I'm like, where did that really satisfying short-term water weight loss go? Well, it finally happened again when I put it together properly. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it is still possible, being at that time 38, to have that. And then the weight was fairly steady and I've dropped, about 50 pounds since in the last 2 years, and it's been very. What I like about it is it's been very steady. It was fast, kind of that first kind of tapered off, but has been constant. Like last year, I lost 10 pounds, which is not a lot of weight to lose in a year, but it is constant weight loss. And look, I started. I'll just be totally honest with numbers here. I started at 285, and I'm at 235. So like at 6'1". So once you start to get down to that number. To that, in the low 200s at my height, it is going to be slower, and I'm happy with that, because I'll tell you something. My goal throughout the entire time, like, I left grad school, I thought, I just want to get to 250. If I can just get to 250, like, the doctors won't like it, but I'll be proud of myself, because, it was such a struggle. It was so hard. I mean, I would try and try and try, and, like, it just wouldn't go down at all, and, like, but when I actually did it properly, I got to 250 fairly quickly and went significantly below 250 to where I'm actually like my goal this year. I don't know if I'll hit it because it's gotten last year I thought, well, if I get to 235, that might be the place where I finally try to maintain. Well, then I got there and then I'm like, okay, well maybe in 2021 I can get into the 220s, which would be like my real fighting weight. Like I would be as svelte as I get I think that's not the thinnest I've ever been as an adult, but like it would be starting to get close. But that's my personal testimony. Kip, you kind of went through yours quickly. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add about let's go into your results, because you weren't fat when I met you. Okay, you were looking, I think, to get to a low body fat percentage, kind of start to get cut.
Well, I've always been very fast. I mean, I've always wanted to do like bodybuilding, like kind of like the classic golden era 70s, Arnold and Franco running on the beach and stuff. And like I when I moved to California, like I kind of like I guess on my weight loss journey, like in college, I had some friends that were bodybuilders and they kind of helped me out a lot, and I could gain muscle very quickly, but it was hard for me to drop fat. I mean, I was able to do it, but like I had a lot of fat to drop. And so I always wanted to like build muscle and tinker with my body, I guess. Like I mentioned before, like biohacking and that sort of thing, and just whatever to see what you could do just to improve your performance. But speaking like the Atkins book, I remember in high school. Of course, like I was like the fattest kid in high school. I was like close to 300 pounds. I stopped weighing myself at 299, so I must have gotten over that. But one of my teachers, who like she had lost a lot of weight, like I hated her as a teacher, but she was like, "Oh, you should check out this Atkins book. You can eat bacon and eggs every morning or something." It was something like that she said, and I'm like, "Yeah, right. That's got to be crazy." And like I never read it at all, never opened it. But now I'm like, "Oh man, if I would have done that, if I would have read it or had any interest in that, maybe it would have been."
Oh, I feel the same way. I feel the same way because, like, had I known what I've learned over time, and not just through Atkins, but through Tom Knotton's Fathead movie and some of the other people I've read, Gary Taubes is a big one when he wrote. I'm trying to remember the first book he wrote. I know that he wrote a book called How We Get Fat and What to Do About It. But I remember now. That book is kind of the Cliff Notes version of a seminal tome that he wrote over 10 years ago now, I think, called Good Calories, Bad Calories, which was like a atomic bomb in the kind of low carb dieting community because of its content. That was highly influential. He wrote a book, I have not read this, but he wrote a book about sugar, I think called The Case Against Sugar or something like that as well. So, all of these things were, had I had that knowledge when I was in my early 20s, I would have saved myself a lot of pain certainly a lot of something we'll get into later, I think, insulin resistance. So yeah,
let's get into talking about the stuff and like let people know what they should know and cut to the chase or something, right? I don't know if you've got show notes or whatever. I never follow them, but
well, I figured we don't want to get into the mechanics until we finish our testimonials, but I think we've gotten through them. So, okay, let's, I guess, segue into the next aspect of this is why. Now, again, this is really where we're just laypersons, folks. I'm a game dev guitar picker, right? So please understand that. Why we think this works. Okay, so there's a lot of controversy on why the low carb diet works. It's not super awesomely understood. There's a lot of fierce debate, and I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of data that go back and forth or whatever. But essentially, the thinking is this: if you cracked open good old Bob Atkins, right, one of his books, you would find this idea that okay, when you eat carbohydrates, and remember, carbohydrates does not just mean sugar. It means things that that have like bread and rice that get easily converted into sugar, like as soon as you eat them. Basically, what happens is this is called the insulin hypothesis of obesity. Okay, where your body has to control your blood sugar, or else you'll die. And so it'll release all this insulin, and its job is to like smash down the blood sugar. Okay, and if this happens a lot, what's going to end up happening is the insulin has another effect when it's in your bloodstream. It also makes it so that you don't burn fat. It's an antagonist against lipid metabolism, basically. And so if you eat carbs, you are essentially putting yourself in a metabolic state in which fat does not get burned very easily. Now, look, if you eat 2,000 calories of just straight cane sugar, but you run 5 hours a day, you're still probably going to be fine. Okay, it doesn't just completely trump some ridiculous situation like that. But for most of us in normal situations, yeah, it's going to make it harder. And the idea of low carb is that, okay, if you do not eat an excess of carbohydrates, okay, your body is not going to be flooded with insulin all the time to keep that blood sugar down. Therefore, it's going to be in a state where lipid metabolism can actually occur. And in fact, if you keep your carbs low enough, there's a difference actually between low carb and ketosis, right? And a keto diet.
Yes. Yes.
And actually, one of the things about Atkins is supposed to be in stages. You start with a keto diet, and then you go into simply a merely low carb diet. You transition. A low carb diet is basically anything under like 150 grams of carbs a day, but that's not going to put you in the state of ketosis. What is ketosis? Well, for most people, it's somewhere under 50 carbs, I guess, 50 grams of carbs. It really depends on the individual. You're going to enter a state where there's so little sugar being taken in that your body is going to create these things in you so that your brain can function. Because one of the things when people complain about low carb diets, when they say it's quackery, doesn't work, they'll be like, well, your brain needs carbs and you have to have carbs. Well, what's awesome, your body's really, really incredible. It will make the sugar that your brain needs if you eat a diet that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. And those are the ketone bodies. It's a natural process that when the carbs drop enough for long enough, you start making these ketone bodies that provides the sugar your brain needs and other aspects.
Your body burns through all the glucose stored in your muscles.
That's right.
It takes glucose from your liver, is it? And that's what it generates the ketones from. And the ketones essentially burn better and faster than glucose.
Right. Yeah, I think that's me. Look, neither
Close
one of
enough.
us are. Actually, I will say one of the professors that got inducted into Purdue with me at the same time when I started at Purdue is actually a researcher in lipid metabolism. I really wanted a chance to talk to him more, but I didn't. And now I couldn't pick his face out of a crowd if I wanted to. But like, oh my gosh. Man. And the tiny conversation I did have, and of course the other people at the table were like dominating it. It was basically like it's really hard and complicated. It's basically what I got out of it, right? Which is no surprise because it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we basically got the gist of it here. You put your body in a state in which it's gonna burn fat preferentially. That's the thing. Like when you're not taking exogenously sugar, your body's not going to have that much of it. You basically have like a certain amount that is in that you have a certain amount of glucose that you keep for like quick energy usage, and then you have the glucose in your muscles. And when you burn through that, you're going to start making the ketone bodies. It takes 2 or 3 days for most people, I guess, to enter that state. And it's not a scary state. It doesn't really. Some people get a little. There's this keto flu that people talk about. I actually don't know anyone personally that's gotten that.
I never got the keto flu.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
I never once got it. I think
No.
the keto flu, I think, is probably your electrolytes being depleted.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think
or
so.
Being dehydrated.
I'm sure it happens. It just hasn't happened to
Yeah.
me or you or whatever, or anyone else I know that has done this. So it's really a harmless state. People do confuse it with ketoacidosis, which is a fatal, severe health problem that is extraordinarily super duper mega rare, and is essentially what happens to type 1 diabetics if they're not properly treated. That's really what, something that type 1 diabetics worry about. And actually, it's why type 1 diabetics test their blood for ketones. That's why there's ketone monitors. Some low carbers use them. I don't. But some do. But they exist for type 1 diabetics. So if you're worried about ketoacidosis, again, I'm not a doctor. Please, again, as we talk about this stuff, I have to keep reminding the listeners, we're not doctors. This is just our personal experience. But my understanding is, by and large, ketoacidosis is not something to worry about. I've certainly never had any ill feeling, any ill effect from doing this literally for years now.
Yeah, I've not experienced. I guess we've probably done it equally the amount of time. Like literally, I guess we had saw it. It was like 3 or 4 years, and
right,
absolutely fine. I mean, we're in the best shape of our lives and in perfect health. So knock on wood.
Right.
But yeah.
And again, I have to stress the insulin hypothesis is controversial. It's what Gary Taubes put forward. That's his hypothesis from good calories, bad calories, and how we get fat and what to do about it and everything. But in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter. Like, what the truth is on that doesn't matter, because if it helps and it works and you're healthy, then it must have some effect. There's all kinds of insulin also has these properties and this and you can get really like caught up in whether or not the insulin hypothesis is really the thing. But one thing that is I think almost indisputable, I think, is that it will. And no one disputes this. Well, first of all, let me just say, I don't think it's so much that people dispute that insulin has these effects that are antagonistic to fat metabolism. It's the people that say the insulin hypothesis is not true will be like, well, yes, but there's these other things that happen with like leptin and all these other things. If you're interested, by the way, there is a guy out there named Chris Masterjohn that goes so deep into this that he's got a podcast. It's like almost impossible to comprehend. That's how deep he gets. So if you really want to listen to someone that goes into the science super deep on this, he would be someone to listen to. But here's the thing: like, it will blunt your appetite to some extent.
I think that for me, I don't think there's any magic to being in keto aside from you get like an insane amount of energy. At least I do. I don't think I burn fat any. Maybe I do, I don't know, but I don't think it's like a miracle where you get to eat everything you want or anything you want as much as you want. But the hunger is so blunted that it's unbelievable. Like, and for me, that's a really big deal breaker.
Yes.
Any sort of,
yes, absolutely, yeah, and that
because
is the key.
Yeah, it's like unbelievably easy to do, and that's the best thing about it.
That is absolutely, because look,
especially combined with fasting, it's really, really easy to do. And that sounds like, oh, you're not eating, you're gonna die, and it's terrible. But in that Jason Fung book, he kind of just glances over. It's like, it's really easy to do, trust me, and like it is really easy to do. As someone who like loves binge eating, will tell you, like, this is really easy to do. It's the easiest diet to do. Period.
Another thing that
nearly every diet
I think is indisputable and not debated is this problem of insulin resistance that is basically this. Like, virtually, my understanding is that virtually everyone that's obese has insulin resistance, which is basically what happens is that when you eat carbs, now the controversy is the cause and effect relationship of the insulin resistance, just to put that out there. But everyone that's obese has it, period, has some level of it, just automatically, okay? And so what ends up happening with insulin resistance is that your body produces the insulin, but your cells are actually resisting the insulin. They're saying they're not accepting the inputs from the insulin that's floating around. And so what your body does is it creates more insulin as a result of that. Okay, now eventually, if that gets bad enough, that leads to type 2 diabetes. That's one of the mechanisms that leads to that. But even if you don't have type 2 diabetes, you can have insulin resistance. And in fact, everyone that's fat does, basically. And so that, I believe, and I don't know this empirically, but I think the evidence and my understanding of the science and all this is what led me to that very common phenomenon. I alluded to it earlier in talking about my testimony in this, that at 17, it was, I just stopped eating fast food. I stopped eating pizza, and I basically had chicken breast and rice and cream of chicken soup. That was sort of the diet. And I went on my mom's Airdyne exercise bike for 45 minutes to an hour on most days, and the weight just flew off. Now, why did it fly off? Because at 17, I hadn't built up all this insulin resistance. My body metabolically was just a fat burning super machine, right? But as the years went by, and I started pounding more pizza and pop into my gullet, and my diet sort of went wayward. My diet was, it wasn't low carb, but it was definitely a lot cleaner at 17 and 18 than it was at 19, 20, 21. What I would do is I would be like, oh, I'm gaining a little bit of weight here. I'm going to go back and do exactly what I did when I was 17, which is say, okay, I'm not going to eat anything. I wasn't counting calories, but I basically what I did is I'm like, I'm not going to eat anything that has 10 grams of fat or more. I'm not going to eat any fast food, and I'm going to exercise. That's what I'd do, and it worked less well every time. It worked a little, but not nearly as well as the last time, and that cycle just continued at 23, at 24, at 25. I would have to work much, much, much harder to get the same or even a smaller result. And I believe that's the insulin resistance building up over time. Metabolically, I just wasn't burning fat well, and yeah, that's going to be, and what happens.
See,
yeah, go ahead, Kip.
There is something that I guess it's sort of like when I was I guess I was 21, I wasn't even counting anything, and I was just weight was dropping off me. And then I dieted so hard for so long that you hit a plateau eventually, which I want to kind of get into this as well if we can,
right?
Because
sure,
this is important stuff. But then, yeah, I don't know exactly what prevented it. I was doing the same thing, right? And then I was getting no results. And then, no matter what I did, no matter how amount of exercise I applied, no matter how hard I dieted, it didn't matter what it was. It just wasn't working. And, a lot of people are like, oh, that's because you're lazy or something. It's like, no, I actually did it. I actually, I have the willpower to do it. It's not as easy as that. You see people that have to lose 20 pounds or something to get shredded, and they're like, look, it's, I don't know why you can't do it. But when you actually have a significant amount of weight, it's a different story.
Right.
And that's why, even people who are they get shredded to the bone and they think they're experts on stuff. They're experts for themselves. They're not experts for you. And so you need to become that expert and figure that stuff out. And that's very hard to do.
It is very hard. Absolutely. And yeah, because what ends up happening is people will say, because it works for them, well, I just did these things. Yeah. But here's the thing I figured out, and it took me so long to get this figured out, right? So, okay, I do the original Atkins, but there's another thing too, right? I do cheat on the reg, okay? But it's had to, because here's the thing, I call it this is kind of a personal principle I have with this. There's a scale, and on one end of the scale, you have perfect efficacy. If you simply don't eat anything and just wait, that's going to be the most efficacious. Yes, your body will slow down its metabolism, it goes to starvation mode, all that, but ultimately it cannot do that forever. That's the most efficacious, but it's the least sustainable. On the other end of the scale is I'm going to go on a donut diet, or I'm going to eat exactly the same as what I'm doing, but then I'm just going to take an extra walk every evening or something, some really easy thing. That's going to be very sustainable. You'll definitely be able to do it, but it won't work. So, one end of the scale is very, 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 very effective, but you can't maintain it for more than a few days, or super, 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 super easy, but won't do anything. You have to find your sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah.
For you, right? And for me, when I started this, and a lot of people do this, I just stayed in what they call induction phase Atkins, which is the 20 carbs a day thing. But I would, at first it was once every 7 days I would have a cheat day. And I lost weight fine, and that felt really sustainable, especially because it was such a momentous change to not eat carbs. Now, very quickly I needed to separate out the cheat days. But the good news is I was getting more and more used to eating low carb, and so it was easier to do. So now now it's every 10, and now it's every couple of weeks. Or sometimes even a month will go by. I don't like really try to time it anymore, but it has to be at least a couple of weeks before I have a cheat day. But when I'm not on a cheat day, I'm very, very strict about it. It doesn't matter if I'm traveling, if I'm visiting family. Like actually, I was recently visiting someone, and that's like an easy excuse to eat, and like I really did not. So I've gotten quite used to it, to the point where situations that used to trip me up, like any kind of travel, would make me eat like crap, right? I can now eat low carb pretty easily when I'm traveling if I want to, right? If it's not like a vacation, yeah, you have to find for yourself what's going to be efficacious enough but be sustainable, because it has to be sustainable. If it's not sustainable, you will lose your progress. And the same thing actually, Kip, let's take a little diversion. Exercise. Let's talk a little bit about exercise. Kip, what is your exercise regimen?
Just heavy old school bodybuilding well, I guess I've diverted my stuff now. I don't believe in cardio at all. Like I honestly, maybe it helps your heart a little bit. But I've not lost any weight doing any cardio or anything like that. So I avoid it completely because I hate running. I'm more of I can run fast, but I'm not like I can never do one of your jogs that you do. Like I hate that stuff altogether. Like I literally despise it. But I lift weights a lot, and I try to lift weights, as intensely as possible for like about an hour, or about 45 minutes to an hour, to build as much muscle as possible. And that's also great for your metabolism.
Right.
And I think that does a lot for your overall health. I mean, my heart rate, I put a heart rate monitor on it, and like my heart rate is like up to like 170 plus lifting weights. And so that would be equivalent to me sprinting as fast as I can. And it's far more sustainable. It's not a lot of people bodybuilding gets a really bad rap for being unhealthy and stuff, but those people don't know what they're talking about. That's what I do for my fitness regimen, and I do that every day. I usually take one day a week rest, that's all I do for any sort of activity, really. And I play with my son.
And so here's where Kip and I particularly diverge, because we're both low carbers. We're both definitely low carbers, and that's where we diverge is this. I actually have very little interest in bodybuilding. I absolutely, from a science perspective, will acknowledge its effectiveness on a wide variety of different things. So just as a general principle, I think it's a great idea. I just don't like doing it, and getting into the whole sustainability versus efficacy thing. The exercise, the imperfect exercise that you want to do, is probably better than the perfect exercise that you don't want to do, right?
Well, I tell you what, any exercise is better than no exercise. So, you want to go play racquetball, great, go do that. That's what you want to do. You want to go play basketball, you want to go lift weights, you want to run, like, do something.
Now,
again, we talked about sustainability, something you want to do.
Right, and for me, what really tipped the scales for me when it comes to jogging is this, right? I actually don't like any type of exercise. That's kind of my biggest problem. Is I actually really do hate it all, unless with the exception of playing like competitive sport, which I'm not good at. So that's a non-starter. But like I do actually like a broomball. I'm a world famous broomball player, as everyone knows. That's worked with me. World famous at slamming my rib cage into the ice, as it were. But anyway, so what ended up happening is this, right? Like I, have started to, just with the pressures of work and life and everything, started to develop very mild but noticeable sort of symptoms of anxiety. This is something that kind of started happening in 2018, 2019, and it wasn't really going away, but it wasn't like a huge thing, but it was definitely a nagging thing. And I noticed that when I and actually one of the manifestations of that is I would get these, I would get nervous, and then I'd get little heart palpitations, which would make me more nervous, and then there'd be this cycle, and it was weirding me out, right? And I was like wondering if there was something wrong with me or whatever. And I remember reading people saying, well, the best thing for that is to go exercise, because it just kind of conditions you from a cardiovascular perspective. And so I started doing that, and it absolutely worked. I just stopped. I mean, I'm not going to say I stopped feeling nervous when there's an actual stimulus in which to be nervous, but that kind of random, it's just a normal evening and I'm feeling nervous about crap, that rarely ever happens now. And I do credit the jogging for that. It's really leveled me out very, very well. So I actually look at the jogging as a mental treatment regimen, almost more so than, I'm sure it's benefited me in other ways, but that's the main kind of thing I look at it as.
Sure. Yeah.
And it really evolved. Like, as you know, when we worked together, we always walked at noon, for upwards of an hour. But the other thing why I like running is like the level of work that it takes to walk, right? Or the time rather is it's just a non-starter. Like, to go out and like, if for me to feel like I've really done something walking, it's going to take like an hour and a half. Whereas, I can go out and run a mile and a half in like 15 minutes, and like, which is what I did today. And I'm like,
holy smokes, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like,
that's really good.
Well, yeah, that'll actually get me on a police department here in Indiana. And I'm like, yeah, like that feels like I did something, and it did, right? It's intense enough that you don't have to spend huge amounts doing it. I also like I've been competing against myself. I'm not fast. Okay. Like, my fastest mile is 9 minutes and 3 seconds, which is, not bad for 40, but is not fast. I've never been a fast runner. When I was in high school, I always walked the mile that they made you do. Right. But what I have done though is improved, and that feels great. Like, I remember I started at like, my mile times were probably like 14 minutes. 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's like a huge improvement. I mean, that's exactly what you want. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, but as long as you're improving and getting better.
Yes,
it's that betterment of your. And in general, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just that,
Yep, absolutely. If you're improving,
whatever,
whether it's you're hitting new PRs in weight or time running, and and it feels great to do that, and it doesn't matter if like literally, I remember our mutual friend and also guest on the podcast before, Conrad Honey. He just, I ran for the first time in forever, and I did like a 7.5 minute mile. Okay, you can't worry about that. Like, that doesn't matter. It's only what you do. And I started, if you walk a mile.
He's got chicken legs, though, Rob. Chicken legs.
To give the audience some perspective, when you walk a mile, if you're at average adult speed, it's going to be about 18, 19 minutes to do it. So running when I started jogging, I was doing miles at like 15 minutes, which is barely faster than walking fast. And then it dropped and dropped and dropped. And now, basically I could do it if I'm not trying to break a record. If I'm just trying to run briskly, I can, I'm not intentionally trying to set a PR. My mile times are around 10 minutes. I can, when I was trying to, last time I actually tried to set a PR, it was 9 minutes, 3 seconds. So I'm pretty confident that in 2021, I can break that barrier and turn in an 8-minute time on some level. I'm very, very close to that. And the reason why I do the 1.5 mile thing is that if you do try to become like a police officer in Indiana, they test you on a mile and a half, not on a mile, because they want to see like that you have some endurance. And so I think the standard is like 16 some minutes for a mile and a half. And I can generally manage in around 14, 15 minutes. So I feel really good about that.
You've got top material.
That's right. That's right, baby. Yeah. So no, it's been good. And I think it has helped, because here's the thing, like, I agree with you that cardio isn't as effective as you think for weight loss. That gets people in a lot of trouble. Like, you get on the exercise bike and it's got that calorie counter. Yeah. First of all, hey folks, that ain't accurate. That's not accurate at all. That's ridiculous. No, you can't pedal and barely break a sweat and burn 600 calories in an hour. That just does not work. Do not think that has any bearing on reality. But what it does do though is, and this is where, scientists might disagree with me, but my understanding of the science is this: if you're eating low carb to begin with, and you are in a metabolic state where you're burning fat, when you do any type of exercise, you're going to end up burning more fat because you've used all the sugar. You're in ketosis. What else is your body going to use? Right? Now, this is why, by the way, you can see this in any book, that when you run, people say, well, you have to exercise. When you do like aerobics, they say you have to do at least 45 minutes to enter the fat burning zone. Well, why is this? It's because it takes 45 minutes to burn the glucose that's in your system, right? The short-term glucose, and then you switch to fat. Well, if you're in ketosis already, that's going to happen a lot more effectively. And any exercise at all, especially if it's vigorous, will increase your insulin sensitivity, which is another reason why I do it. That's the inverse of this, right? If insulin resistance is how you got fat, insulin sensitivity is how you can get less fat, right? Because now the cells of your body are readily accepting insulin, so when your body makes it, it doesn't have to make as much, and that's a super, super good thing, because anytime you eat, even if it's low carb, your body will make some insulin. So.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you eat, your body you'll have an insulin spike, which is also why fasting is very good, because the less your insulin spikes, the more you're apt to be burning fat, or the hormones you release, which a lot of time, I think hunger gets misconstrued with hormone releases of your body, and the false signals from your brain to your stomach of like, oh, you should eat, and that's severely blunted when you fast or you don't eat. I think the one thing that was killer for me was, you see, I hired this guy who he was literally Mr. America. Mr. America, amateur bodybuilder. I guess it's the natural, the highest bodybuilding trophy you could get as a natural bodybuilder. I mean, the guy was like 2% body fat or whatever. But the plan he had me on, this is recent, within the last year, it was, the classic, like 6 meals a day, moderate fat, eating carbs and stuff, but it was just dumb stuff, and it did not work at all. And doing tons and tons of cardio, eating like 6 times a day, constantly hungry, and that hunger is not your metabolism revving up. That's just your body releasing hormones to say you should, and there's no correlation between that. It's an anomaly that somebody like that could just get. I mean, number one, he's skinny to begin with. So whatever he does, it's, he has like a very small margin to lose. And I think that works for him. So he thinks that's great, super, but it's not the way my body works. It's not the way most bodies work.
Right.
I guess, yeah. So, I guess there's like a lot of, you hear all this conflicting information from this person or that person. You might hear our information. You're like, well, that's conflicting with this or that. But, I charge people to go out and just experiment on yourself and see if this is, if you like this, see what results you get, and see what, how it affects you, and,
right.
if you see any benefit from it.
Right, and really, I guess what I would encourage people to do is first of all, don't give up, right? It took me like 10 years of fiddling around before I figured it out.
I mean, for me, I'm like super desperate to I gotta know the answers to all this stuff, and I gotta know it now, and I should have been doing this. But if you look at it like an experiment in the scientific sense, where you're going to only change one variable and see what it does, and you have time. It's not, like, even if you're in a desperate state, you still have time to do. It's going to take time, and you just need to relax and gradually ease into it, and transition. It's very hard to just jump on something immediately and start implementing it.
Right.
That would be some other good advice of just slowly incorporate this and gradually do it. Like become like a lobster boiling in a pot, I guess.
Right. Yes. And you were talking before about, or mentioning before, the idea of a plateau. Did you have something about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of times you might have experienced this on any sort of whatever diet. Like, I think all diets work to a degree. A lot of times it's just what you like doing and what is sustainable. Now, there's obviously some physiological truths to like certain things, and I think certain people's body chemistry is more suited for certain diets, and certain things, from a. Like, I really enjoy eating meat. Like, I love eating fatty meat.
Oh,
so
yeah.
For me, keto is, like, great. I love it. Like, I could eat steaks every day. I could do the carnivore It's great. I have literally no problems doing it. But eventually, no matter what diet you do, you'll hit a plateau. And in that Jason Fung book, he kind of gets a little bit into this, but he doesn't really. Not a lot of people really talk about how to get out of that plateau or what's happening when your body hits that. But basically, and it's similar to the cardio situation where you can get on whatever exercise equipment, and the first time you do it, you say you burn 200 calories. Well, your body wants to sustain itself, and so the next time you do it, you're going to be a little bit better. Your body will. And the same thing with like lifting weights. You lift a certain weight, you have resistance, and then you tear some muscles, and your body says, "Geez, I need to build these muscles up a little bit because I'm using them." And so the next time you do that exercise, you're a little bit stronger, you're a little bit better, and that whatever you were doing before is slightly less effective, and you need to do it a little bit harder to get the same results. The same thing goes with dieting, that your metabolism is at whatever level. You start to get great results, but then your body's like, oh, look, you're dying because you don't have enough food.
Yes.
So I'm going to slow your metabolism down. And so you could be eating, and this happened to me when I was eating like a very calorie restricted diet. I mean, we're talking like 2,000 calories for, an adult male. And like, I was not losing any weight for a long period of time, and the weight was falling off. And no matter what I did, I couldn't even conceive of dropping it lower than that. That's ridiculous. And then I started doing a little bit of research and this and that. And then I guess this is a very common thing with a lot of fitness athletes and, bodybuilding and stuff, and, like figure models. And they reach this point where their metabolisms just go to heck, and then they can't lose any weight because their metabolism is slowed down so much from the calorie restriction that you actually have to do a reverse diet. And for a period of like a week or 2 weeks, you need to bump back up to your maintenance level calories. We didn't really talk about this.
Right.
But whatever that is for you. And there's a lot of different calculators you can do. You can check online and, get kind of where you should be at for your maintenance calories, or what is a good amount for you. I still think there's some truth to that. I think it's a little bit malleable with keto, but it's not it's not going to be something where you're going to eat, limitless amounts of anything and get away with it. But anyway, long story short, you got to bump your calories up for a short period of time, and then you go back to, whatever your reduced calorie amount was on your diet, and you'll be back to like noob gains or noob losses on that.
Right.
Which I've done that many times, and it works like magic. And it's like, wow, this is like a revelation. And I think I hit that after, when I was like 21 and I lost 100 pounds, and nothing my metabolism would do, no amount of activity. I mean, I was doing 2-a-day workouts and cardio and, just all sorts of crazy stuff. And I was in that sort of a plateau of weight loss. But that's what I do for it. And you could do your own research on it to kind of verify that or whatever, or try yourself and see what happens.
And
if you hit a plateau.
This is why I figured when I started this that it was okay to have these cheat days baked in, because I understood this, because one of the things that I actually tried with a little bit of success before I totally figured low carb out was some form of cyclic keto, which is kind of in some ways.
So
or go ahead.
When you do the cheat, do you eat carbs then, or
yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah, the cheat now, I have to actually, one of my things is I do have to get better at like making it not quite as no holds barred, over the top, because there is like almost like a starvation thing that kicks in where you're like, oh, I can have all the things, and then you just go crazy, and then like that's sort of not good either. But like, it's basically like I can eat whatever the heck I want now, because what ends up happening is that there is this leptin resistance problem that comes up, where like when you are in a catabolic state for too long, you develop leptin resistance, as I understand it, and that's one of the reasons why it gets harder to lose weight or whatever. And when you have like,
Rob, you just need to take a thyroid suppressor.
That's right. But
performance enhancing drugs to get around that. I mean, come on, dummy.
But what you do though is if you have yourself a good old cheat day, that resets you basically, and it's just as you described, and so I don't have to do a cyclic keto diet because I just have these cheat days that just pop up.
I think those are really good. I should probably. I mean, I sort of have those kind of baked in as well. They're more like I'm a little freer with the amount of food I eat.
Right.
Like on weekends, I usually pick like a meal, then I'll just have like a bigger meal or something, or I'll just do like a crazy thing. But I do think the entire binge of just like whatever you can eat in an hour or something, like I could eat 10,000 calories in an hour, and that's not going to work.
Right. Yeah, it's for me. It's sort of like what I have to get better at is, and this is the whole sustainable versus efficacy thing. Is like, generally when I need to do better at having a day where maybe I have a cheat meal and it doesn't just like open up. Because here's the thing about carbs. Let's get into this a little bit because we're at the 55-minute mark here. So I want to cover the mental angle because one of the things that I think a lot of low carbers even miss out on, and something that as much as I love Gary Taubes, he does miss out on a little bit, is there is a mental angle to this. It's not all physical. It's not all hormones. There is a brain pan thing because carbs are, I think, quite addictive. They're addictive like drugs are addictive.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
And one of the reasons why my cheat days almost without exception end up being no holds barred, like just binge fests, is the carbs themselves. When they hit the mouth, it's like your dopamine is just like surging.
Yeah, you do. There is like that thing that like McDonald's found out, right? That it's the right amount of fat and salt and sugar, and when you consume it, your body do release dopamine in the same amount of like heroin. I don't know, like the same amount of heroin or something.
Yeah, I mean it's wildly addictive. Well, there's a reason why they say you can't eat just one, right? With potato chips, right? And it's always note that the most addictive foods. This is something funny. I would encourage all of our listeners sit down and get a piece of paper and say, what foods do you have the least amount of self-control on, right? And I think for many of us it would be potato chips, French fries, pizza. Pizza is the destroyer of worlds, right?
Pizza's good.
Yeah, it is. And here's why, right? Because it is this, when you take any food that's a combination of fat and saltiness and sweetness, but it doesn't actually have a lot of protein. That's the key. Yeah. And pizza's that way. It has a little protein in the cheese and not that much vis-a-vis how much you're eating. But it does have... There is a theory, and I think it does have merit. I'm not as well versed in it as like the insulin hypothesis, but it's basically the protein sparing theory, where it basically goes like this: your body demands protein, and if you eat an ice cream cone, it's going to have like 5 grams of protein, but like 100 grams of sugar. And your body, and if that's what you give your body's basically going to say, well, that's fine. I need enough protein to get to like 150 grams of protein or whatever you need for your body size. So I'm just going to eat that many ice cream cones to get there because I don't care about the sugar I'm taking in or whatever. I'll just store that as fat or whatever. But the body literally cannot synthesize protein. Your body can make fat. Your body can make carbs out of subsequent parts. That would be the ketones. It cannot synthesize protein. It needs external amino acids to make that. Right, and so your body will do whatever it takes to get enough protein. And so if you're eating protein poor foods, which is in general, that's what pizza is. It's like salty and sweet and fatty without a lot of protein. So it's addictive, and your body will just go nuts eating that stuff. It's interesting. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's an interesting theory.
I see. One of the interesting things I heard recently is that. It's the hardest thing for your body to process is protein. So you can eat an excess of protein. Well, also, a lot of the low carbers. If you eat too much protein, you'll go into glyconeogenesis, which is your body takes that protein and it makes glucose out of it.
I have found that in my personal experience, because that is something you hear a lot, right?
Yeah.
you know, first of all, Bob Atkins, the original Bob Atkins, does not talk about this being a major concern, and it's never, I think, affected me. Now, here's the thing: I would not advise. I went out and bought the pea strips early on, right, and I used them for a bit. I wouldn't advise people.
These are those strips you tinkle on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I wouldn't advise people to get too bent out of shape over that. There's like a million different things that can affect how the colors those turn. They're not particularly reliable. You really need to kind of trust the process. But no, I actually don't think there's very compelling. I think the evidence that because there's a famous low carber that kind of infamously said that if you eat too much, that like, you know, a steak is almost like eating chocolate cake because it's so much protein and you don't need it in your body. I actually don't think that happens very well. I don't think your body's very good at it. I think your body can do it, but I don't think I don't think you need to worry about protein that much when you're on you know, a low carb diet. I don't think you need to be like intentionally suppressing protein. Now that said, I think it's equally stupid to be like, I'm going to just bomb whey protein shakes all day or something like that.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be good. But I guess you could, maybe this is like a slight tweak you could do, but to add more protein more difficult for your body to process it, so you'll actually burn more calories metabolizing it. And that's what I've been experimenting with now. Not very successful. But again, I like to tinker with these things and see what these things do. So we'll see what that does.
All right, since we're getting to an hour, let's just end this by talking about our goals for 2021. I'll start this. For me, it's to try to get in the 220s. And it will take a long time. I mean, when you get to a certain amount, you know, I'm not going to say I'm like perfectly lean or all that, but like, at least for me, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, right? As long as it's working, it can work slow. I think it's fine. Cause I enjoy the diet, you know, I don't mind doing it. So yeah, it's to get in the 220s eventually. I would say other goals I would have is to continue to be very consistent with the exercise. My wife's been doing a really good job of herself now jogging, which has been a good inspiration for me to continue to jog.
Do you guys jog together?
We don't, only because we prefer different times of day.
You didn't get the outfits?
No, we would find that we would both find that so obnoxious and ridiculous. But you know, we have totally different paces, and like she likes to jog like really early in the morning. I don't, and you know, so it's but we encourage each other just by the fact that we're doing it, you know. And you know, I want to I want to get better at, there's one thing even on low carb that I struggle with sometimes, and that is, you know, my appetite always seems to, I'm actually doing okay right now, maybe because I'm busy and my mind's not on it. And it's also like really late for me too. It's like 12:22 a.m. where I'm at. But like, you know, my appetite explodes in the evening. And that's actually a common issue, I think, that a lot of people have. Like this year is the year I really want to tackle that, where I actually like eat and finish eating by about 8 p.m. or so at the latest, and just allow that fast to occur from the late evening all the way until the next morning. I can fast during the day like a boss, like no problem, right? But like that,
you always did well with that.
Yeah, but fasting like in the evening, now I don't. What I used to do when I was in my early to mid 20s is I would used to wake up in the middle of the night and do the whole stuff your face thing. I haven't done that in a long time, fortunately, but what haven't been so good at, even on low carb, even with the success I've had, is like not like, you know, stuffing my face even with low carb things at like 10, 11, 12, and that is not good for you. And so that's kind of the last big battle I think I need to fight, and I think that'll in turn help me get that last 5, 6, 7 pounds to get into the 220s, because, you know, it's going to advantage me in so many different ways. So that's kind of a big battle I have this year.
Nice. You'll hit it. I'm sure you will.
All right. So your goals this year, Kip?
My goals. I'm going to lose my love handles, I think, the last little bit I have left. They've been tricky devils. I don't want to pull the trigger and do like the hardcore, just like drop dead diet that you have like no energy and you just feel terrible. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it, to try to game it. With any amount of supplementation and just different stuff. different techniques. But I don't know. I'm trying to raise my metabolism right now so I can eat more calories and burn more fat and build more muscle. So that's what I've been focusing in on. My goal is to get 18-inch arms, biceps, or I guess like around the arm. That's what my goal is naturally. That's so stupid.
No, I don't think it is.
That sounds really dumb.
No, it doesn't sound dumb at all, Kip. Well, first of all, you want to be, that you would look good with big guns.
Of course, I would with huge guns.
Absolutely,
guns.
Yeah.
They're not 22s, but they're pretty big.
And since I'm a jogger, I have these little T-Rex arms. It's like, I can barely lift a keyboard. Like
he's got spaghetti arms, Louis.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I should say, I guess another goal would be to get into under 9 minutes for a mile. I actually feel really confident about that one because I'm almost there at 9 minutes 3 seconds.
I tried to run a mile when you started doing those good mile times, and I was like, well, let me see what I could do. And then I think I did 11 minutes, but then I hurt my Achilles tendon like real bad. Like I couldn't even walk downstairs for like 3 months, and I had to rehab it, and it was like,
oh my gosh, wow.
body rejects running.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I've avoided. I don't think I've had any kind of. I've been fortunate that way. I haven't really had any injuries. When I was jogging in San Jose, I did faceplant once, and this is probably one of the scarier things about jogging is like those little cracks in the sidewalk, where sidewalks kind of get over time. Those can cause you to faceplant if you're not paying attention to them. Your foot will hit those, and you'll just get launched. And there was one time where I was near the end of the run, and I was going to do I was doing an all-out sprint to finish, and my toe hit one of those little bumps in the sidewalk, and I got launched. And fortunately, my instinct, my hands went out to break the fall, but here's the thing: like my left wrist was sore when I would bend it. For like the next year and a half, it's like gone now. And I think the only reason why it went away is becoming a college professor. I used the keyboard less because I do think it was being exacerbated by keyboard usage. But I think that was the origin of that was taking that really hard fall that one time. But
that reminds me of the fall Conrad and I took.
Oh yes, that's right. That was a legendary fall, one of the world's greatest falls. By the way, I have to share this with now that we're sort of in the fun time closing minutes. When Kip was going on to his next venture, we had a lunch, a goodbye lunch, and we all got absolutely ridiculously loaded. Partly because they sent us double the drink order by mistake. Actually, it was sort of a happy accident. Yeah, but we were just lit. I mean, lit.
Yeah. Midday, Don Draper drunk in the middle of the day.
And I'm a very light, wimpy drinker, so it takes me very little to get lit like that.
I think we had 3 whiskey shots and something else.
It was And
this is also as a warning in the keto episode. Drinking in keto does not mix.
No, it does not. No.
It is like real bad.
Yeah, don't.
You will get like blackout drunk so quick. You will be hungover. You will feel terrible. It is the worst. It is like awful. So don't do that.
Right. Sure. And here's the thing: alcohol is basically a carb. It'll be. But what happens actually, what people don't know is this: that alcohol, your body will burn alcohol first. Like it'll actually prefer that even over sugar. It will burn that first because it has to. It can't be in your body. But yeah, like we got roaring drunk, and then like. I think you got on. Did Conrad get on your shoulders? I think.
Yeah, he got on my. There's no way I could hop on his shoulders.
Yeah, he got on your shoulders, and we were running around the sidewalks of San Jose that way. And then you guys fell down, like you took a massive hard dive on the pavement.
I was running at full speed with Conrad on my back, and then I think I lost my footing and I slipped, and then we fell sideways.
And the funny thing is, we were all so drunk that there was no pain felt at the time.
None whatsoever.
But later was another story.
Oh my God! For like a good 3 months, I couldn't take a deep breath. Literally, I felt like I broke a rib or something. It pierced the lung. And Conrad's leg, it bruised like an old man's or something. It was like an old person's leg that it just turned like instantly black and purple. Then it went green. Oh, it was bad.
Those were good times. Good times. Well, anyway, folks, we're getting near the end, and I hope you enjoyed this first episode of The Drawing Room, as in back to the drawing room. We're going to cover all kinds of, we're going to talk about, I'm sure, movies, TV shows, and we're always going to spin back around to games on the regular, that we'll do that, of course, as kind of like a home base. But now we can talk about anything we want, and I think that'll be a lot of fun for us. And again, I think if I have a final takeaway, I just want to say, look, whether you do, the low carb thing or not, it is really important to, try to make an effort to take care of your health, to go out. I think virtually any human being alive, if they went out and just took a leisurely walk every day, if they weren't doing that before, that's like going to be a net improvement. And it helps. It makes things better. It will absolutely make you more resilient and robust in these times that we're in now, where there's health issues going around and all that. So don't give up. Don't stay in the fight. Even if it's hard to figure out the weight loss component of it, still stay in the fight. You are worth it. Your health is worth it. Kip, do you have any final messages?
Certainly. Yeah, I think just do something positive for yourself, in whatever form you can do, and then do something more, and then keep building upon it. Like we talked about before, Kaizen, 1% better every whatever incremental amount, and before you know it, you'll be doing a lot of positive stuff, and it builds upon it. Once you start doing something positive, you'll see that, and that's what I think will affect the change when you start to see the benefit of it.
Absolutely.
And you should be doing it for yourself, and you should have, the reason why anybody can do any of these crazy things is obviously because they want to do it, not because they're forcing themselves to do it. You have to make it enjoyable for yourself. And,
yes.
Be very realistic with your goals, so that you're not, robbing yourself, but enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and that's a good final point too. Like when I was at 285, it was like it felt so good just to get to 279, right? That was all I cared about at first. And then it was like, well, can I get to, to 270? And then it was like, so yeah, that's absolutely the way you got to tackle it, because otherwise it's just too immense of a task and you shut down, because you're not going to get there right away. It's going to be a long haul thing, but stay with it, and you will derive a positive benefit. All right, everyone, I'm going to wrap it up now. So we will see you all later back in the drawing room.